All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Before we get started on our review, we need to do a few things. Yesterday, for those of you that did the assignment yesterday and turned it in, it was on paper. There was a question, and I'm going to read it. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to say it by memory because I think I have the question memorized. Ava cut, I think it was 16 and a half inches off a rope that was 40 inches long. How is the length of the remaining rope in inches written in decimal form? I think that's what it said. And then it gave you a hint, is how is 1/2 written as a decimal? I think that's, I may have missed a word or two, but I think that's what it asked. I was doing from memory.
Right.
And so obviously if we started with 40 inches and we're subtracting 16 and a half because that's how much was cut off, but it says we got to write this as a decimal.
Oh my.
So let's start. Chloe. Oh no, sorry, just called on you, Chloe. Seth, we got a decimal. 40 doesn't have a decimal. What do I do, Seth?
You put a decimal point behind it?
Behind the ones place. Good.
Oh, I thought you were gonna put it.
Now I know when I'm subtracting or adding with decimals, I have to line up the decimal points. So obviously 16 and 6 is in the ones place. So it's going to be lined up like that. But now I have to figure out what 1/2 equals as a decimal. 1/2 equals as a decimal. Oh, put your hands down. I got this cool app I'm using. It's called Team Shake. I paid $1.99 for it, so I'm going to make sure I get my money's worth.
Oh, that is
Ezzy,
Yes.
if there are 2 questions on an assignment and you get one of those questions right, what is your grade?
Good to other.
What's half of a dollar?
50.
50 cents. Good. So 1/2 is the same as saying 50 hundredths or 5/10. That is what 1/2 is. So now I can take, and I can leave that 0 off because it doesn't, it's 0 hundredths. That means I have 5/10, and then I'm reaching in my pocket and throwing 0 hundredths at it. So it doesn't change. We already said this was subtraction. Now where the problem lies is we cannot take 5 away from something. It is against the law. So we put that 0 up there. And the problem also, what I saw, was people just bringing the numbers down and making me cray-cray. You don't just bring the 5 down. You don't just bring the 6 down. You don't just subtract 4 minus 1, because that's what happened. That's what happened. So let me ask this. We had 40 inches. Grace, did she cut off more than half or less than half of 40 inches? She cut off 16 inches. Is that more than half or less than half of 40?
less.
Less than half of 40. Okay? She cut off less than half of 40. And half of 40 is what, Brad?
20.
20. So my answer is going to have to be above 20.
It's gonna have to.
It has to. You are correct.
Like forced it?
Yes.
Now, I've got to take, we're going to look at this. I have 0 tenths, but I can't take 5 tenths away from nothing. So I have to take one of my whole numbers away. So instead of 40, I now have 39. I took that one whole and I broke it into tenths, and I have to add it to the tenths I have. Well, I don't have any tenths. So this then becomes the tenth. And then it's just subtraction like you learned in 3rd grade. Oh, I gotta call on somebody to help
I
me with
learned
this.
it in third.
Maddie, 10 minus 5 is?
5.
5. Decimal point comes straight down. When we add and subtract, the decimal point comes straight down. Make sure we line them up so that we can move it straight down, because if you don't line them up, you can't move it straight down. Maddie, 9 ones minus 6 ones is?
3.
3 ones. And Maddie, 3 10s minus 1 10 is?
2.
2 10s. So the correct answer is 23 and 5 tenths. Or 23 and a half. Come on now. I mean, really. I mean, come on now. I mean, really. A couple of things I want to show you before we stop the video and get you to work here. Let's take...
Hello, TV.
We're going to take these two fractions and we're going to write them as decimals. So, I'm going to start with Aiden. Aiden, how do you say this fraction?
0 and 7 tenths.
7 tenths. Aiden, how do you say this decimal?
And
I mean this whole number.
7 tenths.
7 tenths. So anytime you have a fraction that has a 10, 100, or 1,000 as the denominator, you just write it as a decimal in the same way. So you say the same words. The next one, Destiny, how do you say this fraction?
15 hundredths.
And Destiny, how do you say that decimal? 15 hundredths. All right, let's try a different one here. All right, I'm gonna use Team Shake because I paid $1.99 for it. Make sure I get my money's worth. Rylan, how do you say this number?
36 hundredths.
36 hundredths. It's another reason why we need to know place values. Changing from decimals into fractions is so easy. Even a caveman could do it.
That's so many years ago.
I know. You're so old, Mr. McMurdo. Connor, how do you say this number?
7 tenths.
Nope.
No.
Wait a minute, are you
700. So anytime you have to write a decimal as a fraction, it should be easy to do. If you have fractions that have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths as your denominator, that's easy to do. Fractions and decimals, they're all the same. Fractions and decimals and percents, they're all the same. When I figure out your grades on a paper, let's say like today's assignment has 9 problems. So 8 out of 9. If you missed one, all I do is divide 9 into 8. And that gives me your percentage if you miss one on the assignment. Boom, shakalaka, peace out, God bless, love you, son, kind today. Save the world. Please subscribe.